And they were facing 6 Arab armies that were lavishly armed with hundreds of tanks and planes and artillery pieces. The Jewish forces on May 14th, 1948 had 2 1870 French field pieces and a bunch of handguns. And they won. And not only did they win, but they were able to create this vibrant democracy and a thriving Hebrew culture and to create an economy, a struggling economy at first, but it succeeded in absorbing 3 times the amount of its original population within the first decade of Israel's existence. 19 years later, June 1967, Israel faced an existential threat. Gamal Abdel Nasser, the president of Egypt, saying he was going to just throw the Jews into the sea, surrounding Israel with 500,000 Arab soldiers. And Israel faced not just a hostile Jordan and a hostile Egypt, but it faced a deeply inimical Soviet bloc. Remember, there's 13 countries who wanted just as equally as Nasser to throw Israel into the sea. A hostile China, a hostile India. Who remembers how much India hated us? They wouldn't even accept our tennis players in the Davis Cup. Remember that? No economy. There was the joke back then was the last Israeli out of Lod Airport would please shut off the light. Israel had one international ally in 1967, the French. And the night before the war, they switched sides. America didn't give Israel a bullet. President Johnson, very pro-Israel, but he said, fellas, you're on your own. Nothing. And within 6 days, Israel defeated at least 3 major Arab armies and almost quadrupled the territory under its control. Israel survived an existential threat. And today, 2009, brace yourselves. Israel in 2009 is in an incalculably better geostrategic, political, economic situation than it has been at any single time in its last 61 years of existence. It is today that not only do we have peace treaties with Jordan and Egypt, and they're not great peace treaties, believe me, much to be desired, but we have not fought the Jordanians and the Egyptians for well over 30 years. And Israel has excellent relations with most of the former Soviet bloc countries. Some of our best friends in Europe are former Soviet bloc countries. We have a wonderful relationship with China, certainly on the economic level. That's why my son's studying Chinese. Our trade with China goes up between 30 and 35% every single year. Wonderful relationship with India. We've just signed a major contract to refurbish big parts of the Indian military. We just had joint naval maneuvers with the Indian Navy. I wasn't quite sure that India had a navy, but they're maneuvering with us. The Israeli economy is robust. The shekel is one of the strongest currencies in the world. A couple of years ago, we were using this stuff for kindling. Now you should invest in shekels. The tourism is just bustling. Last May was the largest, most successful tourist month in Israel's history. Couldn't get a place in a hotel, couldn't get a place on a plane. And Israel today has a historic alliance which is probably more multifaceted and firmer than any other alliance that this country has had with any foreign country in this post-World War II period. We have the alliance with the United States. Extraordinary. I mentioned before that perhaps the greatest existential threat we face is the threat of the erosion of Zionism. And I can only speak as someone who has witnessed extraordinary events in recent years. I talked about how in 1967, 83% of the soldiers responded for reserve duty to fight in the Six-Day War, and the IDF thought that was an amazing accomplishment. I served in Lebanon in 2006. There was a call-up of the reserves. The response to that call-up was 105% of young Israelis. That means people who weren't even on the muster roll for reserves showed up at the height of the vacation season to go off and fight for their country and perhaps not come home. And I was in Gaza last December, January, where we had another call-up, and the response to that call-up was 125%. Where on earth does that happen? Where on earth does this happen? You know, every year there's a poll taken of the state of Israel, the Herzliya Conference poll. It's a wonderful thing. And every year the findings of this poll never fail to surprise me, at least. I don't know about you. It shows every year that Israelis come in either second or third place in the world. This year they came in second in terms of citizen happiness. This year we came second behind the Danes. Have you ever known Israeli not to sit around 24 hours straight and complain about how everything is miserable? Israelis are happy. Israel came in second this year, as it often does, right behind the United States, in terms of citizen patriotism, people who love their country. But there's one category that Israel excels. No one comes close. 92% of Israelis believe that their country is worth defending. Amazing. Amazing statistic, every year. And yet I ask myself, how do we do it? Really, how do we deal with the multiple existential threats? Say nothing about the water that comes out of our taps. How do we do this? And the fact of the matter is, as an historian, as a scientist, I do not have a rational answer. I do not have an answer. And the only answer I can come up with is not historical, it's not rational, it's spiritual. And that is that there's something about this state that is Jewish, not just because a certain percentage of its population is Jewish, or that its national language is Hebrew, or our national holidays are Jewish holidays. There is something about this country that is intrinsically, inherently, indelibly Jewish in its spirit, in its faith, and its resilience. For the last 3,000 years, Jews have been facing up to and overcoming existential threats. And they do this because of our faith, because of our belief in ourselves as a people. It is that faith, that belief, that has brought every single one of you here into this room tonight. You're all part of the reason why we are able to overcome these existential threats. And girded by that faith, animated by that resilience, united by our sense of peoplehood, I have no doubt that Israel will not only continue to cope with and overcome existential threats in the future, that Israel will not merely survive, but Israel will continue, as it has done. Israel will thrive. Thank you very much.